Hi, everybody. I am Brandon Searle. I am the owner of Seal Pro Painting and now also Seal Pro Seal and Wash, located in Central Florida. I'm also the host of the Off the Ladder podcast, and we exist to help home service business owners learn so that they can lead well and ultimately live life off of the ladder. Today's guest is Brandon Lazar. He formerly owned an exterior cleaning company. He sold it after about 15 years and he exited for around 7 figures. He had 3 locations. He was hiring up to 32 techs every season. And once he exited his own service business, he started NinjaVA, which he's been doing for about 16 months now. And what this is it's VA placements for home service business owners just like you. Now, he's also located on the west coast of Canada, which is really cool. We have a couple companies that we work with in Canada. Great people, love working with you guys. So welcome to the show, Brandon.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it. I'm fired up.
Yeah, man, I'm super excited to jump into this. I saw something that you had posted out on social media about NinjaVA, and I was like, wow, this would be a really great person to get on the show and talk about, everything that you do, the service that you offer to home service business owners. I know that it's, not necessarily the direction that everybody wants to go, but it's a great option for home service business owners that are interested in hiring a virtual assistant. If you could give a quick deep dive into exactly what NinjaVA is and, how it works and how you help home service business owners.
Yeah, for sure. I think it always helps to tell the story of how did I come about this service, right?
Yeah,
So
sure.
really it came from the experience of trying to operate my not seasonal business, but hyper seasonal business. Not only would we go from 2 technicians in February to 32 technicians in May, but our office would also have to expand to meet the growing demands of the business. We do 2,500 jobs in a year. So you can imagine that's a lot of customer life cycles going around, starting with a phone call, email, form submission.
Mm-hmm.
Really, we were just really struggling in the office. And the office is kind of like the brain of your operation, right? If things are sloppy or corners getting cut in the office, that's really bad news by the time it gets to the field, right? So, there was just this one day I was sitting in our office. Literally, it's this office that I'm coming to you from now today. It's an open concept, so you can kind of overhear different conversations. And I had 4 full-time CSRs, customer service representatives, answering calls and booking jobs in Jobber. And I remember overhearing a conversation that was taking place. As you do as the owner, you're always kind of sleeping with one ear open. And, it was a really confused tone on the call. And basically what was happening is someone was calling in, inquiring or wondering why we had crews on their roof, cleaning their roof. That's not a great sentiment for the call. Turns out they never ordered our services. We never gave them a quote. We were cleaning the wrong home. And to make
Wow.
worse, my heart sunk in that moment. But to make matters worse, that was the second time inside of that 1 calendar week where we were literally cleaning the wrong home. So we get how it happens, right? Somebody flubs the address when they're inputting, and the quote becomes the work order. And of course, the technicians follow that work order. And there we were. So at that point, it was so frustrating. It felt clunky. I'm paying $25 to $27 an hour for these people to do just modest office work. You add burdens on top of that, which is usually another 15 to 20%. And I just felt like, the amount I was paying versus the value I was getting was really not in alignment. And at that point, it sucked. I blame myself first, but I went through and I fired all 4 of those in-house office CSRs. And that's where we started our transition over to virtual assistants, which is essentially they're based in the Philippines. They have great ability to speak English with little to no accent. And they're really intelligent and engaged individuals. And basically from there, we never looked back. There were some growing pains, obviously, trying to figure that out. But we transferred our company over to ultimately 4 full-time virtual assistants. And now we're helping a whole bunch of other companies to do the same thing.
Wow, that's amazing. Let's jump back really quick before we go too far into the uh, virtual assistants, and let's talk about maybe in this first part of what it looked like to build a business to the scale that you were at. You know, because really, what this podcast is about is helping home service business owners learn how to get off the ladder, how to build a business that, you know, has value, that could be sold one day, that's bigger than, you know, you, the owner. Can you talk about some of the things that you had to implement, some of the things that you had to have in place to run a business like that? And you could talk about, you know, whatever you'd like, from, you know, whether that's talking about sales and marketing, the production aspect of it, you know, customer experience, all of that. But, you know, how did you build a business like that that could sell one day?
Yeah, I feel like give credit where credit's due. I was a big listener and fan of Joshua Latimer. He used to have the Quick Talk
Okay.
podcast, and that stuff was like gold. Like that was mind blowing back in like 2013, 2014. And the whole concept is, you know, we need people, and they need to be operating systems in our company. That's really what it is. And our systems can even dictate which people we have on board, right?
Hmm.
So really, it gets to that point of we need to deliver a consistently high outcome, no matter what it is we're doing, right? Because
Hmm.
without that consistency, you have enough people all kind of inventing new ways of doing something, whether it be creating an invoice, cleaning a window, setting up a ladder. I actually had somebody break the windscreen or the windshield of our work van because he was taking the ladder off of the roof rack in a weird way. You know, he was inventing in that moment a way of doing something not in alignment with our system, and we got a really bad outcome as a result of that, right? So
Hmm.
it comes down to, I feel like so often as business owners and entrepreneurs, is when something happens, we get on our cape and we go fight the fire, we go deal with the thing. But I feel like what we ought to be doing is we go deal with the thing, but then we really add it to a list or create a system or have some sort of a reflecting experience to be like, how do we mitigate that bad thing from happening again? Right? Because if we're only dealing with the problems and not creating potential solutions in the future, that's going to be a very chaotic existence.
Yeah, that's really good. I think a big part of, you know, having a successful business is having systems in place. You know, obviously that takes documenting, right? So you have to document your systems. I've gone through multiple different, like, excuse me, different coaching programs. And this is all stuff that I've just learned over time as a business owner, and you constantly like implementing things that I need in place to build a better business. You know, simple things like documenting KPIs for all your different roles in the business, and you know, having a system and process to hiring and firing and onboarding, a system and process of, you know, how do we bring in leads, and how do we, you know, get everybody's information in, how do we do the sale, how do we schedule jobs, how do they get done, and document it all. And I think the more detailed you can get with that process, the better your business is going to get, the better it's going to run. And, you know, I can't say that I've arrived there, but it's something that I understand. You know, we've done a lot of that, but I think the more that you dive into those details and get things documented and improve your systems and your processes and get the right people in place, you know, the better your business is going to be. If you're listening to this and you are out there in the field, you want to get off the ladder, like start there, start documenting things. Like, what are you doing that you need to get documented so that you can hand it over to somebody else and they can be successful doing what you're doing? And, you know, being willing to take those steps, right? Because I think one of the biggest problems is people, they might hear this, they might listen to this, but they won't implement it, right? That's one of the biggest challenges, is like actually implementing the things that it takes.
Yeah, and I think like at the end of the day, you know, even the biggest service business, they kind of have two levers, right? They got one, and you pull it and you get HR. That's the HR lever, right? So You get people that come out, they apply for your jobs, you train them, you onboard them, and now you have like human capital to go sell their productivity. On the other hand, you have sales and marketing, right? Lead generation. And ultimately, when you pull that, you want to see jobs populate in the schedule is really what you're looking for, right?
Yeah.
And the whole concept here is if you can systematize both sides of it, you can kind of throttle it down gently so that you're always a little bit in alignment. And you never want to be doing this, too much work and not enough people, or too many people and not enough work. Both those situations suck, right? So
Yeah.
about creating microsystems inside of each of those two categories that you can get predictable results with, and then you can have fun with it and you can kind of just amp it up as you go.
That's good. So if you could share for those who are listening, what did your origin story look like for your service business? Like, how did you get started? Were you like a tech out in the field? Did you start out doing the work yourself and then just grow it over time? What did that look like for you?
Yeah. So first year of college, one of my buddies had worked as a window cleaner the summer before up at a ski hill. And basically back then, like our needs are so modest. Like if we can pay for tuition for the coming school year, like we're golden, right? And his mom conveniently had a minivan that we could slap some magnets on the side. We even used his church to photocopy our first 250 flyers. And boom, we were in business. So we came
Nice.
from very humble beginnings. And I think the big takeaway is like I was like 18, 19 when that took place.
Hmm.
So like looking back on it, like you can almost do no harm when your needs are so minimal and you don't have financial obligations or people to be responsible for. Like even if you fail, worst case if you fail, like you're gonna fail up, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, that was kind of like our origin story, and then just continue to grow and scale every single season coming up. To the point where, in the end, we had 15 work vans, 2,500 jobs per year, and 3 different locations.
That's awesome. So, would you be able to or willing to share like what type of revenue that represented for your business over time? Like, where were you guys at, and what did that
Yeah.
look like?
The final year, we were just under $1.5 million. Now, keep
Okay.
in mind, that's labor revenue, right? So we don't mark up materials. We don't have paint. We don't have HVAC
Yeah.
parts that we're leaving at the customer's home. That is labor revenue, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's good.
that's like the honest portion that doesn't just land on your lap. It's not a cost of goods sold, right? So
Yeah. No, that's really good.
yeah, our busiest months we do 285,000 a month. May and June we did half our year's business in those 2 months alone. So it was very
Wow.
interesting trying to navigate that curve where you go from like 2 to 5, maybe $10,000 in January, up to $285,000 in production. And of those 32 technicians around the morning circle, we'd be lucky if we had 6 repeating coming back from the year gone by. Oh, obviously, like when you talk about systems, our training systems had to be 100% dialed in so that we could, in a matter of a week, we could get somebody who's never touched a ladder before, who's never cleaned a thing, up to the point where they're proficient, they're out in the field, and they're really off on their ability to learn the trade.
Yeah. So, two questions I have. One is, um, with such a seasonal business, how are you guys finding people? Like my first thought process is like in those months, probably a lot of like young people, high schoolers, graduates, and college kids. So that like, how do you find your people and keep them seasonally? And then the other question I have is, how did you go about scaling and buying like new trucks and vans? I know there's like different opinions on how to do that, whether it's buying used or buying new and financing or leasing. Just curious to know like what your strategy was. Were you were you wrapping them, those kind of things?
Yeah, a lot to unpack. I feel like we could just go into every direction here. That's awesome. That's a good problem to have, though, right? So I feel like every business should have like an employee avatar, right? Like the look and feel of that person that is probably going to be successful in your organization, right? For me, it was a 19 to 23-year-old.
Hmm.
And my business kind of catered to that avatar, right? I think it's always a little bit awkward if you're like, yeah, we got some guys that are super young bucks, and then we got some guys that are middle aged with kids, and then we got a guy that's like ought to be retired, but he's not. Like, it's really hard to, like, I don't know, have a target that you're aiming for. Whereas if you know, like, definitively what that person looks like, at the end of the day, in 2024, like, we are selling our positions inside of our company. Like, HR is
Mhm.
no longer just like posted on Indeed and then you get swarmed with great applicants. Like, we got to be, half of it is weeding through the applicants to get good caliber, but another half of that equation is we are selling the opportunity,
Right.
right? So you got to really cater to that person that you're trying to target and offer them stuff that they care about, ultimately, is what it comes down to, right? So, yeah, in that demographic that we targeted, they were generally okay with, work that was non-permanent. We'd have some people that would work all the way through, but for the most part, a large amount of them would go back to school in September, go back to college, or some would play hockey or football in the fall. We correspondingly were just very flexible when it came to that sort of thing. And again,
Right.
that's they're going to value because that's their situation, right? So that's how we went about it. We always had like a 3 to 6 month outlook as well, so we knew kind of what were our hiring levels when you fast
Mhm.
forward. As far as your other question goes about scalability with respect to the assets, so we had a large telecommunications company here, and they actually used Dodge Caravans and Dodge Grand Caravans, and they would be on like a 3 or 4 year lease. So all of a sudden they would just sell off like hundreds of these units. And it was actually kind of cool because like they had professional grade ladder racks, they had like hard
Yeah.
stick in the back, they had the like divider between the cargo area. So like they were fairly legit. And obviously pre-COVID, you could come across those for 5, 8, $9,000, something like that. It was still challenging, even though I had this source. Like there was one year where I was literally like Greyhound busing like multiple times in like January, February to go grab all these vans, because there'd be some years where we'd buy an additional 3, 4, 5 units. So just
Yeah.
managing that growth was a little bit challenging. And then yeah, we would get them. We had a professional sign shop that would install the decals, and I mean, once you get one or two up and running, scaling actually becomes pretty easy because again, you're just following the proven system, and the rinse and repeat doesn't take that much more energy.
Yeah, that's good. We actually found a similar thing here locally. There's actually a company who basically when there's like I don't know if you guys have like AT&T and
Yep.
like AT&T, Spectrum, some of these like different telecommunications companies, they'll actually sell their vehicles to this guy locally in our town, and then he sells those off to like smaller home service companies. So I found him last year, and I've bought a couple vehicles from him. But that's probably where I'll just keep going because, like you said, it's great. They have for us with painting, we have big, 32-foot, 40-foot ladders and stuff, and
Oh yeah.
having that commercial grade, ladder rack to be able to drop them down is great. So,
Yeah.
yeah, similar. Love that. And we pay cash for them.
Yeah.
Typically around like 9-10 grand in today's market, but man, would sound amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
um,
Well, then they always came like off of a maintenance schedule too. So like they were
yeah,
well taken care of, low miles, and you just kind of knew what you were dealing with. So yeah, they were great.
yeah. They're and that they're well taken care of. They've been fleet maintained and owned. So yeah, just we've had great success with that, just with the couple that we've bought that way. So I love that feedback there on that. So yeah, so you built this business. Obviously, you probably learned a lot from that. What do you think were some of the biggest like contributors to your success were, that you could say like, hey, these are some of the things that I did, some of the things that I had to learn and implement in order to have the level of success that I had?
Yeah. So I think if you zoom up to 30,000 feet perspective,
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, whether you're a painter, a mover, a landscaper, a window cleaner, like at the end of the day, you sell the proceeds of your technician's time, right? Like that's the equation. That's what you do. So if they go out and get a large amount of work done in a short period of time and they make fewer errors and they got customers that are really happy with that equation, like that's what we do here, right? So I'd say HR, human resources, is a muscle, right? To be able to basically sell people on this opportunity and then to train them up and then to retain them and manage them really well. Like there's a lot that goes into that, call it like it is. You just have to kind of learn those lessons and you have to develop that skill set, right? So sometimes home service businesses are referred to as like a training wheels business. And I totally agree with that, right? Like this is just stuff that a good business person knows how to do, or a good entrepreneur who's well seasoned. They just know how to do, management of people and interaction with people. And, so much of that comes back to these individual episodes where, especially when you're self-employed, like if you don't do a good job of it, you kind of pay the price and you're the shock absorber at the end of the day. So I'd say that's a big one, right? That's that ability to just be that person who's worthy of that success through trials and tribulations is what it's all about.
Good stuff. Well, so let's go ahead and transition. So obviously you built this great business. You took time to do that. Taking 15 years to build a business, that's pretty amazing. And you had a good run of success with that. So congratulations on that. Awesome. And then to even be able to come out the other side and say that you could sell it, like, there's such a small percentage of people that can say that they, were able to sell their business. And I mean, for any amount, in my opinion, is honorable, just to be able to say, like, I put this time and this energy into building something, and then I built enough value to be able to sell it. And so I think that's awesome. That's my goal, like long term, 15, 20 years out, to be able to accomplish that. Hats off to you on that. Now let's kind of transition. So you get out of your business, talk about the transition of deciding like what's next. How did you decide that NinjaVA was like what you wanted to do? Can you talk about the origin story of that and how that came about?
Yeah. Well, and that's the cool thing, right? Is like we were scratching our own itch and like we needed the service ourselves. We had to figure our way through that kind of adoption phase. And don't get me wrong, like we skinned our knees and bruised our elbows. And we also have like a real high propensity for developing software, which really sets NinjaVA apart from the other ways or places where you can get a virtual assistant in 2024. So yeah, I think when we did it initially, we were kind of just flying blind and we didn't have the support of this software to kind of hold our hand through that relationship with our VAs, right? So what we would find is in the VA space, there's such thing as, it's called padding. So what's a great way to double or triple your income if you have low moral fiber? It's to get 2 or 3 jobs at the same time. And because it's a remote position with limited ability to supervise, the employers might be none the wiser, right? So we dealt with that on a couple of occasions. The other reality is virtual assistants are usually based in the Philippines, not always, but that's where we kind of focused in on. The time zone differential off East Coast time zone is usually like 12 hours difference, right? So literally you flip the clock and they're essentially working graveyard hours to be on your local business hours. So obviously sometimes, we're only human. I always say our blood is all red. Sometimes people fall asleep on the job. And like at the end of the day, we're paying them with our hard-earned dollars. Granted, it's far more affordable than hiring local in-person staff, but still, you want to know that you're kind of getting an adequate value exchange. So, through the development of this software, we're able to overcome a lot of these kind of pitfalls. And ultimately, where we got to is we have an automated funnel that basically brings in hundreds of candidates per day, and it filters them down with the assumption and the knowledge of what they're going to be required to do inside of a home service or a trades business. So even down to like the assessment questions, it's not like, a generic IQ test off the internet or a generic English test. Like one of the questions is like, here's a full schedule. It's the Jobber calendar. Like, where would you place this job that needs to be scheduled, right? So it's like real world application. And in doing that en masse, we ultimately get to this place of, on average, it's 200 initial applicants for one final candidate for review. So we have this really picky hiring funnel, and ultimately you get left with like the top, like cream right at the top, and it's, the best of the best.
Nice. Now, I think some people might have a question like, okay, well, if I decide to hire a VA for my business, could you talk about like, what does the HR look like for that? Like, how do you, and then, let's talk about kind of like I guess like how does the pay work? Like, how does the, taxes, all of that kind of stuff work out when you're hiring somebody from the Philippines? And do you guys assist with that process? What does that look like?
Yeah. So as you know, when you're paying or hiring somebody in-house, you always pay their base wage, of course. It could be hourly, it could be salary, doesn't matter. But then you always have what are, like, usually, depending on where you're located and what you do, 15 to 25% of burdens, FICA, payroll taxes, workers' comp, sick days, stuff like that. That's just like above and beyond a cost of having that employee. So although you might be paying, an office person $25 an hour, the reality is they actually might be costing you $30 an hour or more, right?
Yeah.
And the beauty with VAs is they're actually considered third-party international contractors, meaning you just pay their base wage. That's all you have to do. If you
Right.
ever want a bonus on top, you can always feel free to do that, but you're never obligated to make any of those sort of like government contributions above and beyond. And through NinjaVA, it's actually cool. You just pay by credit card. So we run payroll for you. The pay period runs from Sunday to Saturday. And then we run the international money transfer to get them paid at the end of, or Thursday of the following week. So that all happens automatically in the background. And you don't have to lift a finger in order to make that happen.
I love that you said automatically.
Yeah,
That's funny.
totally.
Good stuff. Yeah, so it's pretty painless. It's like you're essentially like paying. I would assume that it's kind of almost like a subscription on your end, right? A payment to you, and then you're taking care of everything on the back end.
Yeah, so the way we run in NinjaVA is there's a one-time placement fee. It's $9.95 for your listeners. I've actually set up a discount code, so it's Ladder 100. So it brings it down
Awesome.
to $8.95. You can expect to break even on your VA investment inside of 2 weeks when you compare it to the same caliber individual that's coming to you at over double the rate. And then
Mhm.
after that, you just pay their hourly costs. So it's usually $9 to $11 per hour. And like any sort of HR, you get what you pay for. You can find VAs for $3 an hour or $5 an hour or $6. But again,
Mhm.
you usually get what you pay for. So again, these are cream of the crop, 1 in 200 high caliber individuals who can speak really good English. So usually you're about $9 to $11 an hour. The vast majority goes right to the VA themselves as their wage. It also covers the credit card transaction fees because you get to pay by credit card, the international money transfer, and then the whole concept that, like, we use the metaphor, we're your real estate agent in the world of VAs. We want to keep you on offense so you can go, sell more jobs, drive top line revenue. And ultimately, if something happens with your VA, we're there to play defense. And if we got to swap them out, we basically give a 12-month replacement guarantee. And if something human happens, usually it works pretty good. But if something human happens, we're there to lend assistance as soon as you need it.
Nice. Now, so let's talk about that really quick. So let's say, you get this VA. It's somebody that is designated just for your business. And now
Yeah.
I'm not saying they couldn't be working with other ones, but there's consistency. It's not like it's switching up all the time. You get like a designated VA or maybe a couple, and they're the ones that you're working with, and you can do you have the ability as a business owner to like build relationship with them and kind of report, or is it just like strictly like they just do the tasks?
Totally. I'm glad you brought that up because, like, it's not like calling into a call center or an answering service where it's like one of 30 people pick up the phone. This person is exclusively working for you, and they're really in a position to be able to become a specialist in your company. And,
Okay.
above and beyond that, like, they are in your company and they could be in your Slack channel or WhatsApp groups, interacting with your technicians and you, the owner. They're 100% a part of your company. It's just they're not physically there, is the only difference.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that because, you can start to build like some type of, relationship and, really get to know them. And then, yeah, every business I think operates a little bit differently. So, like, having someone who really gets to learn the ins and outs of like how you do things, I think it is a benefit as well. One of the other things that we started to talk about, obviously, there's a lot of different CRMs out there. You've got Jobber, Service Titan, House Call Pro, Drip Jobs, the list goes on. Are there any specific integrations that NinjaVA works with? And when you're working with like a particular VA, when they're hired, I'm assuming that that particular VA would have some type of well-rounded understanding of your particular CRM, whatever that is.
Yeah, great questions. Because we built out this software that ultimately it actually does a few different things. Number one, when you log into your portal, you can see your VA and you can see whether or not they're online, on break, offline. You can actually even click further into it and you can see live screen grabs of exactly what they were doing at specific times throughout the day.
Oh, wow.
It's one of those things that's like trust but verify. You're not going to sit there all day and just hit refresh, right?
Sure.
But at the end of the day, like all of a sudden, if you have 30 screen captures that are all identical with no activity, maybe we want to act on that, right? So it's about giving you the tools so that you can rest assured that your hard-earned dollars are going to a good place. As of a couple weeks ago, we've actually created integrations both with Jobber as well as Housecall Pro. And
Nice.
now you can actually see for your specific VA, how many customers have they created, how many quotes have they created, and what's the corresponding value, as well as the invoices. So it's really cool to get this idea of like, wow, this person's working in the background. They're still very much on our team, and they're coming at a very reasonable price point.
Yeah. Now, do you pay? You're just paying them by the hour. There. So, like, if you have additional tasks, is there any limitations to like the kind of tasks that they would be able to do? Like, the thing that comes to my mind is like, could I task my VA with like, hey, here's a list of clients in Jobber that we're awaiting a response from. I want you to call like these clients today and see if we can, you know earn their business and get them on our schedule. Is that like a task that you could give them?
Yeah, so I actually created a 20-page guide that answers the question, what can a VA do in a home service company? So if you go to ninjava.com/guide, you can download that for free. You don't even have to give us your email or anything.
Nice.
But yeah, totally to your point, start with the customer life cycle. When the phone rings, somebody's got to answer it. That could be your
Yeah.
VA. When an email comes in, that could be your VA who answers or sends and receives. Form submission from your website, leaves a review on your company, responding to the reviews. And then, specifically inside of your CRM, creating that profile, creating the quote, converting the quote to a job, dispatching or setting up for the quote appointment if you do in-person quotes. Like they can pretty much do it all, right?
Yeah.
We even had one of our VAs over COVID when it was really tough to hire technicians. She was pretty much all focused on just our hiring funnel for our technicians. So there's like multiple different avenues where you can basically dispatch this rock star to do things that like are high value, but also maybe there's tasks like I think as entrepreneurs, we got to be very protective of the value of the tasks that we're focusing our time on, right?
Hmm.
So for instance, answering a phone is a $10 an hour task. Going to hire the next rock star inside your company for technicians, that's like $250 an hour work or more. It's hard to quantify, but it's valuable work. Or going to
Hmm.
sell or follow up with that big client to land that like $10,000 job. Like that's high dollar per hour value on your time, right? As entrepreneurs,
Hmm.
we got to focus on what category are we spending our hours, because hours become days, become weeks. But you also got to be focusing on, are you spending your focus and your time doing things that take your energy versus bring you energy?
Hmm.
It's like you're the CEO at the end of the day, you're in charge of steering the ship. And if you're like, for me, it was fielding callbacks. It just totally drained me. A day of, 3 or 4 super frustrated and angry customers. Like I had nothing left at the end of that day. right? So
Sure.
paths that leached my energy. So if we can get those sorts of things off of our table and put onto somebody else's, then the company is just so much better off.
Yeah, that's so good. Now, of course, we can go reference the guide, but just for the sake of like sharing on here, can you invite those VAs into like team meetings, and like can you make sure that they like understand your team culture, your mission, your values? Is there a way to ensure like because I think we kind of talked about this before, but every home service business is different. So not every home service business is going to handle every situation the same way, or is going to want the same action to be taken in a let's say like a situation of confrontation with a customer. So is there room for you to like bring them in and say like, hey, we want to train you on like what our company culture is, what our values are, so that they know like, okay, if this situation comes up, this is how this particular business owner would want me to handle this situation. So is there room for that? And do you guys, have any way of helping facilitate that, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's definitely room, and it's encouraged. Like I feel like the wrong way to do a virtual assistant is to see them as like this third party kind of bolted on entity to the side of your company, right? Where like the better way to do it is they're a member of your team just like anybody else is. They're just not physically here, right? So
Right.
what we recommend is, you know, select a group messaging application that allows for back and forth communication really quickly. So like Slack, WhatsApp, Voxer, whatever it is. And in those early days when you're onboarding, like a check-in call, video call, and a checkout call with you or somebody who's influential in your company is probably just a good policy, right? If we're trying to really bring them into the fold and show them what culture is and how we do things, like that would be a good place to start. I'd say week 2, we can regress back probably to just one call a day, something like that. But no, we actually do placements for the largest pressure washing company in North America, and
Nice.
we have a multiple of virtual assistants from NinjaVA. Yeah, they're basically just part of the team, and it's essentially like they're just working remote, and that's just what you can kind of bend and conform to. But that doesn't necessarily provide like a barrier of any sort, right? We can definitely overcome that with technology.
Nice. So, I don't know if you could speak to this at all, but I'm just wondering, are there any like off the top of your head, or that you would want to say, is there anyone out there who is using Ninja VA that is like influential in the home service industries, that you would be able to say like, hey, this company is using us, or just anyone that would like be people might be able to like say, like, oh, I know who they are. Are you
We
guys at that place?
we'd have to double check that they're okay being mentioned.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
but like I'll allow that to your judgment. But like Fred and Christine Hodge,
Oh,
Fred is
okay. Yeah,
a
yeah,
Conquer coach, a fellow Conquer coach, and then
yeah,
Christine's big in the jobber space
yeah,
as
yeah.
well.
I know Christine well.
Yeah, yeah. So they have a couple VAs as well helping with their hiring funnel. They actually have a
That's
unique
awesome.
story too, right? Because um, initially things were going great, and then their VA was starting to suffer from some health problems that were deriving from working through the night, right? And it was something where in the heat of the busy season, they needed assistance to get this VA swapped out and hopefully not miss a beat, right? So
Hmm.
that's where we kind of rise up and really run towards helping the companies that are inside of our ecosystem. So that was a key moment in time where had they done that on their own, they're so busy, they're inundated with quote requests and jobs and invoices and everything else. Last thing you want to go do is go hire another person from scratch, right?
Yeah,
uh, so that, yeah, there's quite a few people that we have in our ecosystem now. We're only a year and a half old, but basically the long story short is I'm on a mission here to help 1,000 entrepreneurs each save 1,000 hours of time with a virtual assistant. So it's 1,000,000 hours of impact that I'm trying to bring to the world, share.
that's amazing. Do you happen to track that And if you do, are you able to kind of like quantify with data or, customer feedback on maybe um, a correlation of like integrating, NinjaVA into the business and either the amount of money that it's helped businesses save, or is there a correlation with growth for the companies that that are using your services? Do you have any data that you could share on that, or how it helps a business?
It's a bit ambiguous. What I will say is as soon as
Sure.
you log into your NinjaVA dashboard, there's in the top right corner, it says Ninja Savings. And very
Okay.
conservatively, a VA will cost less than half that of an in-person when you forget about the burdens that you don't have to pay and just the affordable nature of VAs. So you get like almost like a ticker there that's showing you how much you're saving as a result of this person having tenure with your company. In addition to that, though, what I would bring up is we're talking about indirect labor. This person is like part personal assistant, part office manager, part customer service rep. And although they save you a lot of money, like my company, the year we transferred over to 4 full-time VAs, we saved $70,000. But that's
Nice.
not the focus here, right? It's actually like, what are the other things that comes from bringing on a VA? Like we've done a lot of placements where it was the first hire that the entrepreneur made. And ultimately, they just felt like they have to contribute in a big way to their company. They need to be intentional and strategic about where they're spending their hours. And ultimately, like quality of life usually goes up when you have a VA. Doing tasks like what you mentioned, the re-engagement campaigns, sales probably goes up when you do something like that.
Hmm.
If you're doing follow-up happy calls, reviews probably go up, right? So in addition to the savings is the great one that we can all latch on to, but it also affects indirectly in a multitude of different ways in a very beneficial way.
Yeah, I think it's cool that you mentioned, like, even for like, let's say the person where, they're in the field, they're doing the work themselves. This could be a great, like, affordable first hire to help create some space, in their schedule of like, okay, well, this time in the evening where I might have spent sending out quotes and, doing customer follow up and invoicing and all of the other stuff that you have to do as a business owner. Well, now I have an affordable way to get this off of my hands and hand it to somebody else, and then you can focus on some of the other strategic things that you have to do in order to grow a business, like focus, maybe double down on your marketing and go do some more networking so you can bring in more work and that money to be able to hire on more employees and really start to offload the actual work itself and the production. So I think that's a really cool way to look at that, is that it could be a great fit for even a smaller company looking to, grow, but minimize the expense of that growth.
Yeah, 100%. Um, I would say like at the end of the day, there's a lot of things that bring your company value, right? Like we just mentioned a few of them, re-engagement campaigns, follow-up happy calls, asking for reviews, all those things, like we know those bring our company value. But the problem is like they're kind of on the outer core of the onion, right?
Hmm.
So if you're busy and you're behind on your quoting and your invoicing and you got 3 callbacks to field tomorrow, are you doing those things that
Right.
bring your company value? You're not. Like there's only so much to go around, right? Where if we have this person installed in your company, they're a specialist and a fixture, then that's the first thing they're doing Monday morning, right? So it just
Yeah.
happens automatically behind the scenes, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's really good. Well, I think that this could be a great option for pretty much any business, whether it's a small business. I think if anyone's listening to this and they're wondering, like, oh, I don't know if this is a good fit for me and like where my business is at, I think that just through talking to you, it's like easy to see like this could be, a great option from a small business to a larger business for like that busy business owner who's got a big business and they're just trying to like get some breathing room and, be able to have some, balance and, focus on some other areas of their lives that bring them some more peace and rest. I think it's a great option, for really any business of any size. It's really cool. It's interesting to hear how you guys have taken this on. I can honestly say I've interviewed other VAs on here, but I've never really heard of anything like this. So it's pretty cool to hear your guys' approach, and how you're serving home services, and the fact that you have some integrations, like we use Jobber. I think that's really great. And that's only going to help home service business owners who are, a lot of our listeners are Jobber users as well. So that's great to know. Well, as we're coming to the end of the time, I just want to kind of open up the floor. If there's anything that we haven't talked about, any features or aspects of NinjaVA that you feel like could be emphasized, is there any last thoughts or things that you'd like to share with the listeners about NinjaVA and, the service and the value that you guys bring?
Yeah. So I guess where I go is, at the end of the day, in 2024, there's a number of different places where you can go online to get a VA. What I would say, though, is this service came from the trenches. Literally, we not only were running and operating a business, but we're actually actively growing it. And it proved to be a direction in a time where finding good caliber candidates to serve in any capacity, including in the office, is very difficult. This proved to be an option that scaled beautifully with our hyper growth trajectory. Having the added features of somebody who's there in the background, who's been there and done it. Literally, if you're trying to grow your home service business, I've done that before. So we've created this offering with you in mind, and we're very niche specific. We're not doing this for bookkeepers or fitness gurus. This is home services and trades only. So when you couple that with what I had to figure out and learn on my own, going from 2 technicians to 32 technicians, I had to get really good at hiring funnels. And basically, I've just transposed that skill and ability into the world of VAs. So not only is it super niche specific to the home services and trades business, it's also very selective. And if you don't have that caliber to that degree of 1 in 200, we've actually done a number of placements where they've tried a VA before from a different service, but English was kind of broken, or they just weren't that fully engaged, or whatever the flaw was, where, there's no supplement or substitute for that rock star caliber at the end of the day. And our system does a great job of identifying that.
Awesome. Well, that's good stuff. I'll ask, for the listeners, if somebody's listening to this and they're interested in, getting more information, do you guys, I know you mentioned that you would offer the listeners a discount. And I really appreciate that. Do you guys offer any type of demo? If somebody's interested, can they set up a demo call, and what does that look like?
Yeah, 100%. That's actually reason for my hard stop in 11 minutes, is I got to go show someone NinjaVA. Yeah, basically you just go to ninjava.com/#demo. And sorry, edit that, ninjava.com/demo. And, there's a Calendly date and time chooser there. And I can hop on and show you what it is and if it would be a good fit for your needs.
Awesome. Good stuff. Well, hey, Brennan, I appreciate your time and the value that you brought to our listeners today. It's really cool to hear about what you're building. And it's so funny. What people will ask me, they're like, well, you talk about, building a business that you can sell. And if you sold it, what would you do? And I'm like, I'd probably start another business, because just an entrepreneur at heart, I love building stuff. So it's cool to hear that, you went from one success to now building this, and I wish you all the success and hope that it's just up and up for you, and it's exciting to hear about what you're building and creating there. So, I'll have to stay in touch with you, and actually I'll probably end up jumping on one of those demos with you myself, so that I can see what it's all about. Maybe it'll be a good fit for us here at Seal Pro Painting, and then we can talk even more about it.
Right on.
But anyway, yeah, thank you so much for your time, man. And if you're watching this episode of the Off the Ladder podcast on YouTube, please like, subscribe, turn on notifications, leave a comment, share your feedback. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, I'd really appreciate it if you could rate and review the show. That'll help us to get the podcast out there to more people and help home service business owners just like you and I. Thank you as always, and I'll see you next time on the next episode of the Off the Ladder podcast.